As researchers engage with the study of migration, experiences, and governance in different regions, we share a wider interest in understanding how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted migrant and refugee populations. In this context, we wanted to identify the needs and risks on the ground faced by mobile people in Brazil and India. Brazil and India share the position of being major emerging regional powers that present certain common political, economic, and social factors. However, both countries also continue to endure major socioeconomic challenges with considerable structural inequalities.
Our overarching aim was really to understand and identify the amazing ways in which civil society has responded to human need in the context of mobilities and also sometimes forced immobilities. By civil society, we mean those organizations and groupings and formations which are neither governmental nor of the private sector, but which may work with either or both of these other two sectors.
The role of the government has really not been that sufficient to address the challenges that has been created because of the pandemic. So role of civil society becomes very important.
For the data collection, here in Brazil, we conducted 25 semi-structured qualitative interviews with civil society organizations.
Data collection process was very interesting, unusual because of the pandemic. We had to sit at home and do the work of data collection.
For the sampling, we divided the country into 5 regions, following the geographical political divisions established by the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics. And then we proceeded to map all the civil society organizations working with migrants and refugees in those regions.
Through email and WhatsApp and telephonic conversations, we fixed up interviews with those organizations and we conducted interviews.
We designed and used the same instrument of data collection in Brazil and in India. So we asked exactly the same questions to our interviewees in both places. The first finding is that the pandemic, and especially the combination of lockdowns and border closures implemented to respond to this health crisis in Brazil, introduced a new layer of vulnerability among already vulnerable migrant groups.
Their livelihood has been impacted. They have to settle and reshuffle from the places they have lived for a longer period of time.
The measures adopted to respond to the pandemic have the potential to produce long-lasting changes in the governance of mobility in the country.
Some interviews responded that those who have returned back to their native place, they have started working in the same area or the same profession in which they were trained and they were doing in the big cities.
Many actually resorted to finding alternative sources of income, creating, for example, their own businesses in the food sector.
We have also come to know that in some cases, government support is very much required and needed because many migrants who relied on government support for their survival.
NGOs, faith-based organizations, and migrant-led groups brilliantly adapted and responded to these populations' growing needs.
Civil society has been a real savior during the time of pandemic.
We think this sort of a study is important given the silence of many of the issues analyzed in this project in the public domain here in Brazil. So we hope that the project can help give visibility to the plight of migrants and refugees in the country.
It will be very useful for the government sector to understand and analyze that there is a need of a coherence between the policy and the practices, that whatever policies government are coming up with, how effective it is at the ground. Are the benefit of the policies are reaching to the people who require it?
I think this is a very important study because often the focus could be on migration itself, on the migrants' situation, which is of course key. But it's also important to understand what is it that enables, the majority of them to survive, albeit in very difficult circumstances.
This sort of endeavor is key to understanding the specificities and the commonalities of processes that are truly global in nature, such as the issue of mobility and displacement.
our findings bring together a lot of sort of otherwise disparate information about the ways in which civil society has operated.
This study shows that policymakers should pay attention to the key role of civil society sector working with migrants and refugees during the pandemic. The pandemic has brought out the immense capacity and multifaceted strengths of these organizations, as they have been able to assist, coordinate, and collaborate in one go and amidst a very challenging scenario. As such, national and international policymakers on migrants and refugees must support and engage with civil society and migrant-led organizations as key partners in the efforts for social cohesion and inclusion now and in the post-pandemic.